Welcome officially to my new segment called Bite Size, which is something that is gonna be a little bit different from my usual vlogs, which I normally take like 30 minutes or sometimes longer, where I talk about movie review. But I think I did mention that ever since I came out with movies that there's nothing much to say. I just leave me just with just a few minutes to talk, almost between 10 or 12 minutes more or less. This is the time where I just gave out kind of like a small chunk of my usual vlogging. And what a way to officially start Bite Size with none other with the end of one of my chapters of my life, with none other than Gintama, the final. From what you can tell from my costume, I'm a big fan of that anime. Gintama just came out of my life. It just started out with with just reading a chapter of Shonen Jump until I just got so hooked into it that I just kept watching it and watching it. It was a time in which also I did kind of stop because I was kind of busy in other stuff, and then when I was studying animation in Vancouver, this is when Gintama came back into my life, and boy, that I just kept watching all the way through until the very end at the moment. And from that point, Gintama gave me kind of like a big perspective about how storytelling should be when you want to make likable characters, characters that have flaws, but that can be really clownish or kind of like very silly, but at the same time they got a certain sense of humanity into them. So it became the point that Gintama became one of my favorite anime of all time, alongside One Piece and almost everything else from Osamu Tezuka. I mean, yeah, the story about kind of like an alternate Japan where where it's been taken over by aliens, and then we just see just the lifestyle of one samurai named Sakata Gintoki alongside his friends and comrades, are sometimes frenemies, doing their ends meet just to pay the rent, but ultimately getting into wacky situations that ranges from parodies to soul situations. It was very notoriously really getting big, and then of course came out when things began to noticeably see that we're gonna get the final moments of the series, in which things get serious, things change, and it becomes kind of a little bit bittersweet, because it's almost like we kind of expected it, but we also kind of didn't want it to, because we grew up with these characters and it was kind of like bittersweet. And well, after many season finale, many times that the manga apparently wanted to finish, but unfortunately it kind of has some hectic stuff that I'm not gonna go too much into detail. What a way to finish the series! Instead of a final chapter in the anime, they decided to do it on the big screen. And boy, that I was lucky that I got to attend an event that is gonna take one day. There's nothing much I have to say about the plot, because, well, you can't talk about the plot because you need to watch the anime, and even the prequel specials that happen in order to understand it. So this is only something that I can talk to you as a fan of the series. And watching this the end of that anime was almost watching like an end of a chapter of my life. And boy, that it was great. It finished it off greatly as it is. You grew up with the characters, and they gave out one final push in order to wrap up all the loose ends that it needed to be. And even the series was self-aware that it was ending, so they gave it almost all they got. And you can tell that there was a semblance of love into the series. Even it comes up into their own parodies. And what I like about Gintama is that even though there are moments in which there's almost humor, it doesn't take away that there are moments that they have to be serious. And that final movie is no exception. And man, that this movie even though it's kind of like a 2-hour long film, it kind of half goes through kind of like the final mission, and then the other half is kind of like a big long wraparound conclusion to see how everyone is doing. And one thing that actually makes me kind of happy is that the movie kind of acknowledges that going back to the status quo is not exactly a bad thing. Things change, but coming back to the status quo, it kind of shows that it's kind of like a new level of conformity that we have, and how sometimes sometimes not changing the most important things is technically the best way to keep on moving into life. And this is I think that Gintama really earned that. If I have to go a little bit into criticism about the movie, is that I don't know if it has to do with the movie theater that I went to, but I felt like the sounds was a little bit on and off. Sometimes it gets low, or sometimes it got louder, or it didn't feel too cinematic. But I don't know if I have to blame the movie theater that I went through or how the movie was rendered. But I'm probably sure that if it wasn't kind of like in a big Japan event, I bet that it will sound a little bit much cooler. And also the animation, it's nothing major. There's nothing kind of like special. It's kind of like a big anime. Watching a big anime in a giant screen. Nothing more, nothing less. You're just only watching kind of like an extended big screen edition of a series. But still, I'm glad that they just decided to end up everything kind of like in a more glorious manner. Although now that I think about it, they kind of tried doing that with Evangelion. But okay, I'm not exactly a fan of Evangelion, more or less. But overall, I will say that it was mostly an experience for me. Gintama was a little bit part of my life, and while watching anime, it made me realize some important aspects when you want to make anime with characters that they're really three-dimensional, or they can be wacky, they can cry, they're just. It's just an anime with a lot of humanity and sometimes goof enough. So yeah, this is my big send-off to Gintama. So to the creator, Sorachi, I wanna thank you very much, because Gintama it indeed became one of my favorite anime of all time. So there's nothing much I have to say, but どんだけ